doing all the things that we need to do, and we continue to try and grow our knowledge, it would just occur to us to make sure that we're part of that and bringing anything that we can to you. So we shared that last year we conducted a air quality sample test, and sure enough ended up finding some issues with a buyer's condo that they were purchasing, and Vito's going to share that story a little bit further. But through the process, they ended up finding that it was about a $5,000 remediation fix. And so out of that, the buyer was able to negotiate with the sellers to have the bathroom redone, the mold fixed, and then some ceiling issues as well. So we just, anytime that we see these things, we just want to make sure that we're bringing you the knowledge and information that we can to provide you to be the best realtors you can be. And that's why you guys take the time to be on calls like this. So Vito's going to lead us through some samples and some information of how that occurs, what it tells us. Deanne's going to be our moderator. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comment section. She'll read them. And then we're hoping to have some time at the end for all of us to be able to answer anything we can. I will also throw out there that this air quality mold was actually a recommendation from another realtor. So if you guys would like to hear us talk about anything, please shoot us in the comment section, an email, a text, whatever it might be, to let us know what you want to hear from the inspector world. You know, Vito, as a certified master inspector, has done many, many inspections, many years of doing this, has knowledge. And if we don't know it, we have the connections to help us find it. So again, without further ado, then I will turn it back over to Vito to lead us through this exciting journey.
Thank you, Stephen. I went ahead and muted the room. As we go through, you may have questions. Usually they're awesome questions. Just type them in the chat, and Deanne will stop me at any time and read your questions. Thanks for that. And let's get started. So you may...
Vito, really quick. Guys, while you're on here, we're going to be doing a drawing for $50 off an inspection at the end. So in the comments, if you don't want everybody seeing your information, that's fine. Just seek out Deanne and do a private message. Give me your email, your name, your phone number. And from that, at the end, we're going to do a drawing for $50 off an inspection. Back to you, Vito.
Thank you, Deanne. So what is mold? It's a type of fungus. And it grows everywhere. And Florida, we literally have it everywhere. It could be black, white, orange, green, purple, live almost anywhere indoors or outdoors. But when we're talking about home inspections and why it's important, it needs moisture and a surface to grow. So if mold's getting elevated in the breathing spaces, it typically means a moisture issue, although the source of that moisture issue isn't always as simple as a roof leak or a plumbing leak. Why do we offer it in our premier packages? The answer is 3 reasons. 1, it saves our clients money. 2, it protects their health. 3, it protects your reputation and ours as well. Nothing's worse than having somebody come back, having to tell somebody 6 months later and $10,000 in expenditures that, well, it's not part of what we do. So we choose to offer that as a service to anybody who wants it. And we always encourage our clients to do it, but especially when we start to see some red flags like high moisture. There could be the plumbing leaks. There could be wet walls behind the toilets or under the sinks or in the ceilings or in the attic. Visible microbial growth like we see all the time on air handlers in the garages. It's not a big deal if it's just on the outside, but guess what? If it's circulating through the air, somebody has a sensitivity, could be an issue that they'd want to know about. Other than that, stains are signs of high humidity, poor ventilation, even amateur repairs. Somebody patches a roof properly, maybe it's dry, right? Maybe the ceilings are dry right now, but what happens in May when it starts raining every day, right? So all of those could be reasons why we might offer it as part of a package to the client. So let's talk about the process of having the air quality sampling done. Our role as home inspectors is really just to report the news. So we offer the service. Let's say you and the client have talked, you say, you know what, I think it's a good idea that you get it. So we do it. What we're doing is taking some air samples. We have some calibrated equipment. We take an air sample outside. We take a couple on the inside, and we put a chain of custody form together and we send it off to the lab. We're not experts. We're not even legally qualified to call something mold because you need a license for that in the state of Florida. Fortunately, the governor does allow home inspectors to perform mold tests as part of a home inspection, and that's a huge benefit because we can do it for half the price of the remediators. So we send it off to the lab. You get the results the next day, and you get a big fancy report. Now we can connect you with them to talk about the results. They're pretty easy to read. We're going to go over some right now, but it's pretty cut and dry. If it's elevated, you get remediation, or you enter into negotiations with the client. And as you know, some of the experienced realtors know that it's doesn't have to be a deal killer. We had one we saved the client over $5,000 in remediation. She bought the house and she was happy. So before we pull up reports and start going through it, I just want to take a quick note and talk about air quality versus encased mold. So when we do the air test, it's just cartridges. One on the outside is control and two on the inside at random parts of the house. And for bigger houses, it's more, but usually 3 zones total in 2,500 square feet is acceptable. And all that is right in the center of a room, usually one wet area, one dry area, and we're testing the air. It is not the end-all, be-all. Sometimes it happens where people move in and they go rip out a wall and then they find mold behind. And even if they had the test done, it didn't show up, it's because it was encased. It wasn't circulating in the air. There was no indication of it until they started removing stuff, or they rip up a floor and they see it underneath. Air quality testing is not going to catch that. What we can do, however, let's say I have a cabinet leak and I suspect that there might be a problem under that and there's access point. That 3/4 inch tubing does connect to the cartridge. I can run it into that void provided there's access. We can't do destructive testing. We can't cut holes. But if it's accessible, I can run it under there and take a test there. As long as I label it properly, it will help us. Your inspector will make that determination when it gets time. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and let's pull up a report. We'll just call this report 1. This is the home inspection, and I thought it would be a good idea to start here first. As you can see, this home inspection wasn't bad. We found about 39 defects total, and most of those were cosmetic or minor in nature. But when we come up to major concerns, we see that the inspector found high moisture meter readings on the roof in a couple of places, and in the walls in 3 different rooms, and under the window in one of the rooms. So what does that look like? I'm going to quickly go down and find it. You'll find it under room components. And while we're discussing things today, remember, post your questions at any time. But if any of you might have an interest on how to navigate a home inspection report, say so in the chat room. We can easily dissect one of these any time. So here we see in the ceiling in the kitchen where he found high moisture meter reading. And this was only about 17.5%. It gets high moisture at 16%. So it wasn't like it was soaking wet or anything. It was just high enough, and it was near an AC vent too. So you know what? It most likely indicates an active roof leak. We recommended having a roofer check it out and having a mold analysis performed. And there were some other areas too. In the attic, on the sidewall there, you can see it. In the utility room, second bathroom, second bedroom, found high moisture, and these were significantly more wet. We had almost 30% here in a wall, and in the living room under a window. So what I'm going to do, let's take a look at this. Let's see what the mold report looked like. So the first page was just address and name. I'm hiding that just for confidentiality. But page 2 is where the meat of it starts getting into. really, what we hope for, what you're looking for, is this red bar right here where it says conclusion. All that we need to see are these 3 lines. Control, not elevated, and hopefully the third one's not elevated. In this case, though, we see elevated. If you look up here, it says kitchen, and that's where we had that ceiling, that moisture that wasn't really all that bad. But guess what? Now we had elevated spore counts. Now, again, I'm going to stress again and again and again, I'm not a lab coat, I'm not a scientist, I am not a techie guy, but I can see right here, we're looking at this number, 8,500 total spores. Outside, the average was 3,340. That's elevated. And if you look over here, we had 6,000, and over here was actually 0. That's elevated. That's enough for me to know. Well, what does that mean for me? It means now you have a decision to make. Now you want to call an expert in to really find out all the areas and talk about whether or not you're going to move forward, who's going to pay for it, whether or not you want it, and how to go from there. We can help with that discussion, but typically our realtors are experienced and know how to handle it on their own with this, without us trying to editorialize the report. At this point, we offered the value, and this actually was the report from the one Stephen brought up earlier. Client brought it to the sellers, who ended up fixing it. It saved the client over $5,000. They moved in happy. But the report just typically will have, graphs and charts and stuff. And here's a breakdown of the different species that they identified. In this case, what was elevated was Penicillium. And really, the only thing I need to know about is that it's common everywhere, it grows on wet areas, and that some of the health risks contained are type 1, hay fever, asthma, hypersensitivity to allergies, things like that. So it's not like the Black Plague or anything. But you know what? It occurs to me that we put up with discomfort sometimes when we don't have to. I wake up with headaches, or my nose is stuffy or whatever. Maybe the issue's bigger than that. Maybe it could have been fixed if we had just done an ounce of prevention. So let's pull up another example. In this example, we have a home. Again, I think this was a townhome. It only had about 30 defects total, and most of those, again, were minor. But we did have a couple of moisture issues. We had a possible water leak in the second bathroom, high moisture reading in the second bathroom and second bedroom. And let's go take a look at plumbing, which here's a good segue to talk about too. When we do the inspections, you'll notice that we do exceed the scope of a home inspection. According to the standards of practice, all we're required to do is run 2 fixtures simultaneously and not use any tools or anything like that. Not even a GFCI tester for outlets is required. I mean, everybody uses one, and we're no different. But when we come in, we run all the plumbing for 30 minutes to make sure there's no issues. We test everywhere with the moisture meter, and we scan the home with a thermal camera. And you can see this was no different. Minor stuff. There was a little pressure issue at one sink. And here with the thermal camera, we identified a possible water leak, and I think possible was very general. He found it, And we're going to go down to room components, where here you go. So high moisture meter readings by the toilet. There you go. Again, 100% that wall's soaking wet. And that's what it looks like under the thermal camera. And here is what the mold report gave us. And this was the living room. Remember, he had called it out in one of the bathrooms. Now, I wasn't there. I don't know for sure, but it's probably a wall that separated the two. or close enough. And where we had the moisture in one area, we had the mold in another area. And again, there's that penicillium again. It was only 40, counted as a 40 on the outside and over 3,300 on the inside, right in the living room. And all right, I'm going to say this badly, so just take it with a grain of salt. With everything that's going on right now, I think I'm going to pull my last non-gray hairs out. If somebody says, "Won't somebody please think about the children?" You know, but in this case, if there is an issue, you know what? Bringing kids, maybe you're wearing scrubs, maybe you have allergies, somebody you know, and Edna likes to spend a lot of time over there. Just be smart. A lot of times things like this can be fixed with a minimum of invasiveness, ounce of prevention. And lastly, we're going to go to one more.
Hey, Vito.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned how, we as the home inspector are not the expert. So if somebody were to get this report and need additional information, what's that process look like? And is it similar to how when we make recommendations around, a plumbing issue or something like that?
Well, that's an excellent question. And on every mold report that the lab generates, they have a customer service number where they do have the lab coat sciencey guy that will walk you through it and kind of talk about it. But typically, his information is going to be technical. I always tell my clients to trust their real estate agent, the professional there who can really help them with what they want, and that is, the transaction. But really, there's mold, you got to get rid of it at that point. You need a professional. Who pays for it and how that's done. We do work with a couple of different companies that are really good, at least in the sense that they're not going to try to upsell or anything like that. They'll take care of it. We trust them. They've worked for us personally and professionally. So, but at that point, it's logistics. Does that answer your question? Perfect. So in this home inspection, let's see what we found. So this was a big one. It was an older house. It was like 1925 on a crawl space. The inspector found over 100 defects. Granted, 50 of them were minor concerns, but there was a lot of items that needed further evaluation, a lot of major items. And some of those major items were issues with the chimney, leaking sinks. Even though it was a detached garage, I'm not too worried about it, but the home had galvanized steel plumbing. There were leaks in the bathroom, water stains from a possible roof leak in the ceiling, and high moisture meter readings in the bathroom. And that's the one I want to focus on, actually. So let's go to plumbing. This was only like 1,000 square feet, by the way, in case you were wondering. It doesn't take much. If I can find the plumbing. Oh, staining on the ceiling right there. I don't know where the plumbing is. This master inspector can't find it. There you go. All right, so water pipes.
Look for the thermal imaging, Vito. Those are the pictures
Exactly.
that lead you to the plumbing.
So here we are, bathroom leaking pipes can cause some damage to surrounding areas. Recommended a plumber, recommended a mold analysis, and there's the moisture meter readings at 71%. And if we go to the mold test, again in the living room, it wasn't in the bathroom. This was in the living room, so we know it was spreading. And again, even though the counts weren't crazy high compared to what we saw before, it was 240 outside, it was 1,100 inside, it was 80, and it was 240. Those numbers should probably be reversed, but here we go. And again, nothing huge as far as like black mold or anything that's going to cause any real craziness. But still, hay fever, asthma, allergies. And in this case, we caught it for the client as well.
Hey, Vito.
Yes, sir.
Seeing that we saw the moisture in the bathroom, were we taking the samples in more of the living space, the living area? Is that why it was the living room and the master? I assume the master meant the master bedroom.
I am going to guess, so it's a guess. Take it for what it's worth. But my guess is that they already knew about the
issue in the bathroom.
The issue in the bathroom, so we wanted to see what was going on in the rest of the house, and a good thing too, because a lot of times, as you well know, if you give that information to a seller, they're going to fix the barest of minimums and say, okay, you're good now. And then 6 months later, they're calling their real estate agent, and the real estate agent's calling us, and hey, but now we're covered, and you are too. So, and before we, I'm gonna stop sharing now because we've gone through the reports. I do want to say that regardless of all of this, with every home inspection we do, in addition to all the testing and the exceeding of the scope, every single home inspection we do comes with a whole suite of warranties and guarantees. And one of them is our mold safe guarantee. And the mold safe guarantee is good for 90 days. And it states that remediation, if mold is present that was not found at the time of the inspection, then you are covered for up to $3,000 in remediation for 90 days. And that's not dependent on whether or not you get a mold analysis. And that's all I got. Are there any questions on anything we've gone over? Any stories, anything like that? All right, I have done my job then. Stephen, I'm going to turn it back to you. Thank you, sir.
You're on mute.
There we go. Thanks, Vito. Again, the goal, everybody, is just to make sure that we are communicating some of the services that we offer. I feel like we do some of the best basic home inspection appropriate for every home, whether it's the sewer scope and or the air quality mold. But just knowing what's out there is helpful to you and to your buyer. I promise you, any home that I buy, I will have them do an air quality mold test, just to make sure that the air that I'm breathing is as clear as it can possibly be at the time of purchase. So, again, if you had any questions, don't hesitate to call. I know last time Vito made a pitch that as our certified master inspector, he is happy to come out and do an inspection for you and your buyer. We do take requests, so if you have your favorite inspector, always feel free to ask for him. And if it's Vito, I know that he's happy to make sure that happens for you. And then Deanne, did we have anybody who was interested in the discounted inspection for their buyer?
Yes, but we have a quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
Do we provide pre-listing inspections at a discounted price?
Happy to discuss that with you. Of course, the pre-listings don't need the 4-point and wind. Still may take the inspector the same amount of time to do that inspection as if it were they were the buyer. And we are working on, I see this little smirk on Vito's face, we are working on some additional packages and values for that, where the buyer doesn't, or the seller doesn't necessarily need the appliances run. He knows they work, or he knows they don't work, whatever it may be. So we are in the process, and I would say that we're probably within 10 days, Vito, or so, less than that.
We're ready. We're ready. It's just a matter of
putting those out there. Oh, we're ready. So stay tuned. How about that? We'll have an announcement here soon. So to answer the question, yes, it would be discounted. There's obviously a lot less that needs to go into doing that, as again, we don't need to run the appliance. We don't need to turn all the lights on and the fans, but the basic foundational and electrical, the little bit of a 4-point plus per se. We don't like that name, but that's kind of just so you get that mental picture of what that's going to be able to deliver to a seller and to yourself as the selling agent to price it right and time it right.
All right, and just to clarify, if a buyer does not have the mold inspection done, they are still covered with the warranty for 90 days?
Absolutely. Great question.
Okay, and really quick, explain the 90-day warranty, just really brief.
So we buy warranty packages for every full home inspection that we do. There's several warranties. There's the general 90-day that covers the electric, the structure, some of the appliances. There is the water line. There's Sewer Guard that protects the water line and the sewer line from the house to the road. There is the 5-year roof leak protection plan, and there is Mold Safe. Again, if there is new mold, and it happens within 90 days, or there's mold that was present that was not found when inspected, client is covered for up to $3,000. I think it has a $500 deductible, and it's good for 90 days from the date of the inspection or 22 days after closing, whichever happens last.
Cool. All right, well, that's all the questions that we have. So as far as the winner for the $50 off, Stephen, pick a number between 1 and 10 because I have everybody numbered.
All right, 3.
That would be Jim with Action Pro Realty. Woo.
Awesome. Congratulations, Jim. And so Deanna will follow up and get you the information, and the next that you have, we're happy to do it. And again, if you'd like Vito to do it.
Looks like Steven's computer froze. I just want to take a minute to thank everybody for showing up.
He'd be happy to, but any one of our inspectors are always at the ready.
All right, great. Thanks very much.
Happy Friday, guys. Stay safe out there.
Happy Friday.
Bye.
Bye.